Hey George, it's so great to see you. The last time I saw you was months ago at NAMM in early 2020.
Indeed, yes, and it did. It seems like quite a long time ago.
Oh my gosh, it has, and so many things obviously have changed, and in a sense for the worse for musicians. But you guys have been really busy lately, and you came up with some very, very interesting and important products that I had to have you on the Everything Saxophone podcast to talk about.
Sure, thank you, thank you much.
Yes.
So the quick story is that right after NAM, we all came home, and we had a couple of weeks, and we realized something was going on out there in the world. And when March hit, it hit very hard, and that was the coronavirus. Initially, our company had to close down as a mandate for the state of Maryland, where if you weren't an essential business, you had to close. Now, my wife and I and our son was able to work. We worked behind the scenes just to keep some things going on. But my wife, Lynn, and I, we said, we need to do something for these people that are out on the front lines that are both medical folk and regular people, grocery store, post office, firefighters, things like that. So we repurposed some of our equipment, and we designed a face shield that we could get material for. And the funny thing is, when you say that, you couldn't get material. And we had to figure out ways, and that's why I say we had to design it to what we could find. And we did. So what we created 3,000 of these face shields to donate to the local community. And we
Wow.
spread them out everywhere. And that was just our giving back with while our business was idle making ligatures, we figured, well, let's make this stuff. So with Len and I and our son and a series of volunteers, we made 3,000 to give to the community.
That's amazing. That's incredible.
That and it was really great because people appreciated it. And we had a very good friend of ours that had some surgery a couple of weeks ago. And she said when one of the specialists came in, they had one of our face shields on.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
All right. So that was in March, and it took us March and April to design, get materials. Comes June, and now COVID is starting to come down. It looks like things are going to rebound, but then you realize that's not true. And not only is it not true, we began to think of the musician community, and we realized that, well, what are they going to do to play? What is their protection, especially woodwind players? So we decided we would adapt this initial face shield to one that allows woodwind and brass wind players to play while minimizing risk. So that's the whole idea. We're talking about risk. We're not talking about cures. We're not talking about that it's, we take a risk, we minimize it everywhere. We do social distance, we wash our hands, we put face coverings on. And when you're a woodwind player, you wear a space shield. And that's what we called it, the space shield, because I need my space, man. Anyway, here is the retail box.
Oh, that's awesome looking. That's great.
And we currently, our initial offering was for woodwinds. So it has an aperture that allows the mouthpiece to slide through. So it opens up to allow the mouthpiece to go in, and then it closes after you pull the mouthpiece out. So let me demonstrate this. We have a series of woodwinds here that I tested on, standing, sitting, big, small, sideways, sitting in front, things like that. And that's what gave the ultimate design. So the Space Shield has a couple of features that are unique to it, and we did apply for patent back in July. We have foam that is replaceable, removable, and adjustable. So by putting these two pieces on, not one piece, it gave us the ability to really be adaptable. And we decided early on, as I was testing outside one day and it was sunny, I put the shield on with only one piece of foam. And as soon as I did, I started heating up and it was fogging. And we said, well, let's cut it in half and let's create a vent. So we cut them in half. Now there are two pieces and it looks like it's far apart, but when you begin to wrap it around, it's only a small hole, just enough to give you venting. The other thing is that the foam is thicker than a standard face shield. Most of them are about 1 inch. This is 1.5 inches, again, giving more room for glasses too, because that's a big deal. I find that when I wear a mask and I put glasses on, it fogs up quite regularly. So this, I haven't had it fog on me. Now, it's not that there aren't conditions where it might begin to fog up, but for the most part, I found it to be minimal to none. So we put it on. Unlike most of the shields, this has a band that is indestructible. It's not made of a flexible material, and there are no staples. There's no metal in this that could come out, scratch things, or scratch you. So we put it on the forehead first, like this, and with this single button, we buckle, we just pull gently, and now it's on. So the buckle adjusts very easily for any size, from a full Andre the Giant type to a small kid in elementary school.
Or me.
All right.
Or me, where no face covering ever fits me.
Right, right. So one size doesn't fit all, so we adjust to fit to you. All right. So now we have it on. We have better protection than with nothing. And if we take saxophone, the most difficult one was a tenor, because the tenor has a long neck and people wear it differently. So if you have, wherever the angle is and how the geometry is, it tends to come in lots of different angles. So it was the most critical to adapt to. So we have an aperture that goes from here all the way over to there. And that's because the mouthpiece comes from many different angles. It comes in, it goes out, comes in, goes out. What occurs is, my goal was that it becomes intuitive, such that when you're playing, and you don't even think about it anymore.
That's an important point, because we were talking beforehand, and I was saying to you, because I play trumpet and saxophones and stuff, and mostly tenor, although I do also play alto.
Right.
I felt a little more paranoid with like a
Yep.
saxophone because because of the reed. Where trumpet, I just put it up, and I'm not going to wreck the mouthpiece. But that's interesting. My tip would be that once people buy this, and they should. Practice with it. Before you
Yeah.
go out to rehearsal or to a gig, practice doing this. It will not chip the reed, because I have tried it a number of times, and
That's right.
it's perfectly fine.
Right. So part of what makes it special is that the material is a very high grade marine vinyl. And we had to experiment between too thick, too thin, too stiff. It took a lot of experimentation until we found the right amount. So now this is very, very durable. It's designed to last a long time. You can clean it regularly, has very good optical acuity, so you can read the music, but it's flexible. And when it is, you hit the bottom, and that gives you an opening to bring your mouthpiece through. And then when you pull it out, it closes. And because people are a little afraid initially, it seems awkward. So again, I'll do it. And it's about understanding where it is.
And while you're getting that set up, let me also say too that it's incredible how you've thought of everything, because it never would have occurred to me. I mean, I'm not a designer, but yes, I teach people all the time, and they do come in with a tenor at different angles, whether it's the instrument angle or whether it's coming out the side a little bit,
Correct.
whatever. So that's really smart. That's really smart.
So we take the tenor again. And what was great about the tenor is that the angle changes radically. If you're sitting in session, then it's on the side and the way that it comes up. And if you have something that's pivoting more in the center, it takes a different path. So the way to get used to it is actually hit the bottom and you know where it is. And then it slides up. So it hits the bottom and slides right into your mouth. The ligature doesn't go in. It's designed to give. So it doesn't pop through. On the brass wind, it does pop through because it's a different mouthpiece and it comes in a different angle. But on this, it just breaks the seal, so to speak, and it's in my mouth right there.
Okay, that's an important point because I didn't realize that the ligature, I was thinking the whole mouthpiece would go through, so it doesn't. It's
Right.
just up to the ligature.
Right, right. So something else will be right with you here. I'm simulating a clarinet as well as a soprano. You have options when you're playing clarinet, though often I find that classical players play very close, like this. And when they do, they can come in from underneath. They don't have to use the aperture. They can, so that's that option. But if you play and you're fairly dynamic or you're Martin Frost or something like that, again, you come in the same way, but now you can move it all over the place. And again, it's just getting to learn it and it goes right in.
Got it. That's really smart, like I said before, and it's just a question of just getting comfortable with it. And you know what's interesting too,
Yeah,
the way you've designed this, because I'm gonna ask in a few minutes about, have you approached schools for this, because you need something like this for the young kids to understand how to put it on, take it off really quick, and also to be, like you said, indestructible, because kids will break things and rip things and all that kind of stuff. So
right.
and actually, you know what? Let me actually ask that question now. Have you approached schools with regard to this, and in terms of allowing kids to play in ensembles in schools in those states that do have kids coming back? Will this
Right.
this doesn't take away all the risk. We've talked about that before. It doesn't, but I think
Right.
it would really eliminate a
We're,
lot.
we're, minim we're minimizing and managing risk. That's what the whole COVID thing is. So there are no guarantees. So if you go out of your house at all or let anyone in, you've now introduced risk. So the goal is we minimize and we manage risk. And part of that is all the other things where you are having social distance, where the amount of people in a particular size room, where after they play, then it's vacated. There's time for the air to be turning over and bring the next batch in. There's a lot of work that's going on how to most safely play instruments. Now, as an aside, and I'm not an expert on this, but I've only heard about some things that for wind instruments, there are covers to go over the bells, and that by using the covers, you're helping to minimize aerosols.
Right. Now, with that, from what I've been doing a little bit of research on that too, when you have something like a trumpet, the cover makes the most sense because the air is coming out. The air is coming out mostly from the bell, unless you're leaking from the corners, and the face shield will help with that. But
That's correct.
when you're dealing with a saxophone, though, the only problem is that the sound is coming out from all the open keys. So having a bell cover isn't necessarily going to really, it may help minimize a little bit of the risk, but it's unfortunately not taking into account the entire instrument, where the sound is coming out.
So Donna, what I have, there are some organizations that are working on this with specialized equipment, and they have vested interest in musicians being able to play and play safely. Initially, what it looked like to me was that most of the aerosols come out of the bells, and that on saxophones and clarinets, that not as much as you would think comes out of the keys. Mostly it's coming out of the bell. So
That's
something, it's important for us to do our due diligence so we can be safe, feel good for ourselves and others. And again, this is one, our SpaceShield is one component, and then we look for others.
right, right. And you know, it's interesting because again, the research is just going to get better and better. I mean, my initial thought, like with a saxophone, would be some kind of, you know, very light type of covering. You know, it's almost like when you're in a saxophone in a marching band and it's bad weather, it's sleet, yet you're still marching and you want to cover your instrument because you don't
Yeah,
want it getting ruined, and you put a garbage
right.
bag over it. You know what I mean? You put it in a garbage
Yeah.
bag and you're walking with a garbage bag over it. I'm surprised that someone hasn't come up with like a clear type of, you know, covering like that that's fairly light to take care of even that little risk.
So what the reason why we designed this as a face shield versus a mask, because there are some products out there that are masks that have the ability to open them or have a slit or a cover, is that I want it to be able to read, to see clearly, to not have glasses fog up, to when you put your saxophone down, it's dynamic. You play, you put it down, you turn a page. So you just put it in and out, and and you don't have to use other hands to manipulate. Now, another option is in conjunction with the SpaceShield is to wear a mask and pull it down so you're able to play. And if you have extended periods of time when you're not playing, then you can just slide it up. Again, we're looking for all available tools.
Absolutely. I was going to mention that too. I was going to say that you do have the flexibility where you can wear a mask underneath this. If you're, you know, if you're playing sets, like Claire Daly has been using the face shield. She loves it, and she's posting on Facebook quite often, which is great. And,
Yeah,
you know, we're going to have breaks in between sets. So instead of having to take the face shield off, just put your mask on, and then you have even
yeah,
more protection.
yeah, right, just slide it up. That's correct. Um, the other thing is that in the design, um, we made it such that you can wear it differently. So the one way to wear it is with using two of the foam pads, you put it on, and that's one. Another way is that you remove them and you only use one foam. So you put one foam in the center. And what that does for you is it gives you more of a wraparound, if that's what you would prefer. So now it's sculpting around your head. For some people, some of the clarinet players have liked that like to come in from underneath of it. It protrudes it out a little more, makes it a little more rigid, and they prefer that. So again, it gives you a choice for the style that you're playing, for the wherever you're playing, the need that you have, it will still work the same way. Um, so again, and you can replace them if they get ooky. That was our other design. So you can clean your shield regularly and often, so you stay safe.
And the foam is replaceable also.
Yes, you can order foam from us. Now, you had asked how we're getting this out to the public.
Yeah.
And what we decided was that the traditional model of bringing new product to market would not work in this case because of time sensitivity. Typically, we go to distributors that then sell to dealers that sell to either online companies or to then the dealers sell to individuals. We felt that we had to go direct because of speed, and this was in July when we were applying for patent, and we knew that fall was coming, schools were coming, and people needed protection. So we are selling on Amazon, and that way it's direct. And I think that they'll be available within a couple of days to ship. It's a long process to get it through the Amazon system, but it's now in place. So I would recommend going to Amazon, and it's the SpaceShield, one word, um, or you can look up Rovner SpaceShield. It's getting traction as we speak right now,
And I
and
will
you can go direct.
and
You
I'm
can
going to
go direct to us.
I'll share a
What
link
was
in the
that?
I'll share a link also in the description. So this
Uh,
way, I'll share a link to obviously to Rovner Products, but I'll
yeah,
also share an Amazon link as well for those people in the
great,
United States. I know the link may be different in other countries, but um,
right.
oh yeah, speaking
And
of other countries, yeah. So people that are in other countries, would they go right to your website as opposed to Amazon, or is it available in other countries on Amazon?
it is not available. We're doing domestic only. And with Amazon, the way it is, it will bleed over into Canada and Mexico, North America. But we decided first we're going to do local, so we can understand and get quick feedback, make sure everything's working smoothly. Um, and if someone did want to order internationally, they could go direct. And someone could go direct right now. But Amazon, for a lot of people, if they have an account, we thought that that would be a very quick way to get the word spread.
I can see um, band directors in schools, band directors in colleges that are open um,
Yeah,
using this, and
yeah,
because a lot of people are forgetting the fact that the teachers need protection too,
yeah,
and especially in a band room when you have all the wind instruments blowing at you. If you're a conductor,
yeah.
you definitely need protection. Which face shield model would you say would be best for them to use in terms of that protection? I guess it would depend on the instrument they may be demoing, or if they're not demoing, which one would you say?
Yeah. So as the band director, um, I would say it would be the woodwind version, um, because I don't know if you'll be able to see this. The brass wind has a different pattern. It's almost like a spider web.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the differences is that when you put the mouthpiece in for the woodwind, we start below us and then we slide up. So the aperture is below our mouth on the woodwind version, but in the brass wind, we're coming direct. So where this is located where your mouth, so it's up higher than on the woodwind, but it has a few more slits in there, and that's the compliance necessary to allow that mouthpiece to go through. And once it goes through, it's no problem. So they're designed a little differently. Since mouthpieces for brass winds don't have ligatures, then the whole mouthpiece does go in. Whereas on the woodwinds, it's just the tip of it. And then the ligature is virtually, literally pushing the shield in a little bit.
Okay, and also I'm just thinking too for brass players as well. Some will play with more of a downward angle, some play
Yeah,
with a more upward angle. So I'm thinking that your design also compensates for that as well.
it does. Uh, so if I put this on, it first goes in right where my mouth is. And that's the reason why it's a big circle, to allow it to go up, down, left, right, wherever you need to go. Goes through nicely, comes out. Funny thing is, originally, when I did the design, I thought that the woodwind would work for um, for brass players, and had a guy come in. So he was able to get it in, and he's playing. And when he pulled the trumpet out, the face shield grabbed it and pulled it out of his instrument. I said, "Okay, back to the drawing board."
Give me that mouthpiece. Um, you know, that's great. You've definitely thought of everything when it comes to this. And you know what I'm thinking too. If I was a band director in a school, I would probably want to use the the one foam instead of the two because I'd get more of a
Yeah, wrap
wraparound
around
look.
more. Yeah.
But here's my question with that though. Do you find with just the one foam, does that fog up because it doesn't have that little vent in there, or you found it doesn't fog up because there's still space on the sides?
So what's occurring is that since a typical foam shield is, let's say, 11 to 12 inches long, this is only just under 6 inches long. So as it turns around, you'll have some minor venting on the left and right versus the center.
Got it.
But it will be much closer, and you can hear yourself a little more. So I would say that it would have the potential more for venting, for having a little bit of steaming up than the two, but it does wrap around nicely. Very good protection because it's coming literally against the side of your face.
That's great to know. And I think a lot of band directors and, even people that are, working in, as private teachers who are doing group lessons, eventually when
Right.
we'll be able to see students, I think this is going to be a really great resource for them to still, as you said, minimize risk. We don't know what
Yeah.
the future is going to bring a vaccine. It's going to bring, some medications that will minimize the severity of symptoms and all that kind of thing. But
Yes.
in the meantime, this is such a great idea. I'm so glad that you came up with it and that you thought of so many different. You thought of everything before you made it, which is the case for everything that you make. And I want this to actually lead into the next thing, which is what you're known for, which are the ligatures. And
Ah, my
what
pleasure.
Yes, and what I wanted to, this is a question I get often on my own YouTube videos. I've been
Right.
using the Van Gogh ligature for a number of years now, since you fitted
Yes.
me for that at NAMM, my gosh, probably in 2015, 2016. And I
Yes.
get the
I
constant
remember
questions.
that you were wowed.
Yes, yes, my facial expression was like, I mean, my eyes just opened up. Um, but a lot of people don't understand how this big ligature, they don't understand where it falls on the mouthpiece, and
Yes.
they say, oh, you have your ligature on wrong. I
Right.
don't. So
Right.
can you give us a little demo
Sure.
there?
Yes. Well, first, the things that we do with our ligatures break convention. And so we don't follow prior art, we develop new art. And it means that you do things maybe a little differently than you would because it works differently. So on my tenor mouthpiece, I'm using the Van Gogh. To be aware that the Van Gogh is about 30% taller than the other ligatures. And that's by design. It does two things. One, it allows us, and the other part of it is that it doesn't look like it, but it's mainly contacting the outer edges of the reed. So it isn't wrapping around continuously like our other models do. This is mainly putting the force on the very edges. And that's what gives it the unique freedom for the reed to play with such a big sound. Because typically people look at this and they think it's going to gobble up the sound. And it does the opposite. It just explodes in sound. So you had an earlier model that did not have the V that we cut in there. And that was something that we did initially for one reason, but after I did it, I realized that there were a couple other benefits to it. And that was for someone that was playing an E-flat clarinet. And what they found was that before this V, this would come to a point. And when they played, it would hit their lip. So I decided that I would cut that off so that there's no point. Well, that created another wow for me because what I realized then was we were creating an asymmetrical tensioning system. So by having having this V here, when we tighten, we're tightening more at the base and less at the top. So we're getting more in the core of the reed there. And that just happens to give that reed some extra compliance to vibrate any way it wants to. And so this is our most efficient ligature. And when you play it, that's when you notice that the sound is bigger. I say that this is neutral in how it's swaying the spectrum. So it's total, it's not affecting it dark or bright. It's just honoring the tone generation system, which begins with you and goes to the mouthpiece and reed. So it's amplifying that. And if we change the tension on it, we can sway a little bit in certain directions. So as we add more tension, we can make it slightly darker. And as we have less tension, we can make it a little bit of those highs coming more. I found that soloists that really want to get the most sound they can, they'll put it on, they'll tighten it to get a good seal and play, and then they'll loosen quite a bit. Now that reed has so much freedom and they can get big, big sound with more of the upper partials. So if you're in a big hall and it's all acoustic, you want to get that spectrum. You're not losing the low end, you're just giving a little more at the upper. And the gain is much more. So with that, it's 30% taller. Where do you fit it on the mouthpiece? Okay. So when you have a vamp of the reed, and you may not see that since this is a clear, but typically we like the bottom of the V to be at the vamp. So it's higher than it would be with a typical ligature. That is by design. So what happens there is we're combating, if you use cane, since we're riding up the sides farther, we're combating reed warp during performance. Because that's what happens is that we do all of our magic and our gymnastics on the reed. And while performance, if it happens to start drying out, then it will begin to warp. And this happens to be a key area where we combat that warping. If you use a synthetic reed, this is fantastic for gripping. It grips like no other because we have 30% more of the reed that we're grasping on the left and the right. So it holds synthetic reeds extremely well. And sometimes they can be a little bit fussy when you put them on, and they can twist a little bit. So if you play cane, great, keeps it from not warping. If you play synthetic, holds it in place.
Now, I have a question for you. This is interesting because when you first fitted me for this, I don't have a reed on my mouthpiece here, but I remember you said, tighten it all the way, and then if you want a little extra oomph, just give it one twist. But I didn't realize you actually can do a lot of twisting. Wow.
A lot of twisting. All right. So here's what's unusual about the Van Gogh. The Van Gogh has a tremendous amount of what I term compliance. Well, what does that mean? It means that as it wraps around, because it wraps around itself, so there's a cushioning aspect to that. And so it can grip the reed, but then you can tighten it more and more. And then it means if you loosen it, you have a lot of loosening you can do before it would fall off. So this is unusual. Our other ligatures don't do that. They don't have as much compliance. So yes, in fact, that gives you that ability to do that.
And can you give us, again, I know this is an audio podcast, but I know a lot of people will be watching this video. Can you give us a close-up shot of what that looks like with the reed attached, so this way people can see how, where exactly on the mouthpiece it goes?
Can you see that?
Yes, and if you could also turn it to so we could see the front of, and even the sides too, people can see that it looks like it's on wrong, and it's not.
That's correct. If I slide this down maybe you can see the vamp of the reed a little bit.
Yes.
And, but we prefer it. We like to start up high.
Now,
Again, we break the convention. Now, that said, we also enjoy people to explore. And for some people, they may like it down or they may like it up. There is something interesting that I do when I play with um, some mouthpieces, is I can change the stiffness of the reed with the Van Gogh because it's so long. So if I find that there's a reed that's a little bit too stiff, I will actually take it up even higher, and then I'll clamp down on it. And it's beginning to pull the reed down a little more, and it's almost loading the reed to respond. Or if it's a little too loose, then I'll bring it back and I'll loosen it and bring it way down. So it just gives me a little more to play with.
okay, so this is in the place of, there's that old trick. Actually, let me grab my alto mouthpiece for a second here. Although I have
Yeah.
a different Rovner ligature, I have the Versa on here, but that
Mm-hmm.
old trick of, placing if the reed is too stiff, you wouldn't line it up with the edge of the mouthpiece. You'd put a little lower. If the reed was kind of on its way out, and is a little soft, then you'd push it up so it'd be a little bit past the tip. So this is kind of taking the place of that.
Yeah, it's doing it a little differently. Yes. Yeah, by more or less loading the reed or taking the load off of the reed.
That's really cool. And see, I didn't even know that. That's so interesting. I'm so glad I asked about that, because I was going to ask, does it matter if you place the Van Gogh, a little bit higher than what you just showed me, or even a little bit lower? But you just answered that question, so that's great.
Right. And again, for some people, they may like it that way, and they'll have a reed that works just great. And for it doesn't matter. We don't care if people slide it all the way to the bottom or put it on at the top. If that works for them, that's great.
That's awesome. Thank you for that explanation of the Van Gogh, and I'm sure that we will definitely be spreading that around for all those people that have the questions about when I use this awesome ligature.
Now, I do have something for your folk.
Okay.
If we didn't talk about this, but I have some the original design that you tried out and fell in love with. I have some of those, and I wanted to make an offer to your listeners, where if they'd be interested in this style, which is the one that you had, there's no cutout on it. So it has a point, as you can see.
Yes.
All right. And so we've done some things to the newer ones, but I had some of these left over. And I would be glad to sell them at a very reduced rate if any of your folks would be interested in taking advantage of that.
So I'm going to say, for those folks that are interested in trying the Rovner Van Gogh ligature and, are just even a little curious, this is a great way to check this out. What I'm going to have you do is contact me at everythingsaxophonepodcast@gmail.com, and then I'm going to forward those emails to George as I get them. And that would be, approximately how many of these ligatures do you have?
So what I'll do to answer it this way, Donna, is I'll give you the sizes that we have, and it may be somewhere totaling 100 or more. But the sizes, I'll say this size will fit Jody Jazz and Otto Link, and this size will fit Berg Larson and Gardala, and this size will hit. So I can tell you some of the main mouthpieces that people use if they'd want to try it. And so for, we'll say $30,
Wow. Oh my God,
that's
that's
what
a
we'll sell
steal.
them for.
That's crazy. All right.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
it's a good deal.
Oh my God, it's beyond a good deal. That's like an early Christmas gift.
Yes, all right.
It definitely is. Thank you for offering that. And I will have people contact me at everythingsaxophonepodcast@gmail.com. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. Okay, so if you want to steal this because it's a steal, contact me right away. That's awesome,
Yeah.
George. Now you have some more really exciting news. I can't wait for you to share.
Okay, so we've introduced something I've been wanting to do for a number of years since I went into the attic and dusted some of the cobwebs away and found some mouthpieces that had been sitting for many years. They're metal mouthpieces that Phil Rovner designed anywhere from 12 to 25 years ago. And so I call this concept Phil's Attic. True vintage Rovner mouthpieces. They're vintage in a way, but they're new. And we are selling those on Reverb now, and they're good prices. So if we were making it new today, for instance, the tenor would sell for over 500, and it's selling for maybe 360, something like that. So you can check those out. We have limited stock of the various sizes, but um, we just began to put it up on Reverb, and it's gaining a lot of momentum very quickly.
Do you have one that you can show us? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
I can't because I don't have one. I didn't all it's called, the main one is called the Deep V. And there are people that have been out there that have been looking for Deep Vs for a long, long time. And we have the Deep V, the Eagle, Pentangle. So there are about 5 or 6 different versions, mostly tenor, few alto and sopranos. And so the best thing to do is go on Reverb and look for that. And you can begin to see some of the descriptions of them.
It's interesting. I remember hearing about the Deep V
Yeah,
quite a while ago, right? How old is that?
yeah.
It's mouthpiece.
The first one I had gotten was probably in 1991.
Yeah.
And there have been variations of it throughout the years. But what occurred was Phil would create the mouthpiece, it would catch on, and then production wasn't able to keep up with orders. So Phil would say, well, I'm going to go invent a new ligature instead. So we had a lot of start stops. And one day after we had developed the Star Series ligature, I pulled these out and it seemed to give them a new life. And so I started, and there are hundreds and hundreds of these. So there are different models, different tip openings. We have a number of them in number 5 and 6, and we have those in 11 and 12s and 10s. So it's good uppers and lowers there.
Another question for you with regard to these new old mouthpieces, these vintage
Yes,
mouthpieces.
yes.
So when people go to reverb.com, that's reverb.com, it's sort of like a mini version of eBay, and I bought some mouthpieces on there in the past.
Yes,
So when they buy these mouthpieces, I'm going to ask, do they come with a ligature?
they do. And they come with ligatures that it could be a Star Series, or what was the predecessor to the Star was an Evo. Some of them may have a dark depending on the size they have. We have a tenor that I call it the tenor Rovner Slim. It's so skinny, it takes a sopranino ligature.
Wow.
Sopranino. And that only came in a dark. So sometimes it's an older dark version. Most of the time it's a Star Series or its predecessor, the Evo. And we do make the Platinum and Platinum Gold and our other models in that size for those Rovner mouthpieces, Phil's Attic.
That's awesome. That's great to know. Listen, George, thank you for sharing this wealth of information, and I'm so happy that you created these space shields, right? That are just innovative, and they're so important for musicians and teachers. When gigs start to open up, we still have to minimize risk for quite a while, and I think this is going
For
to
quite a while.
Yeah, I think this is going to really be a game changer. It's really going to help people, and it could be a selling point when you think about it. If people that are hiring are concerned about having a brass or woodwind player. So, for example, like a number of months ago, I was scheduled to play a wedding, and it was supposed to be inside a church, and all set to go like a week before, and then they canceled out of the gig because I couldn't wear a mask when I was playing, and it's a shame. This was during the summertime, and it's a shame. It's a
Wow.
shame that of course, I lost out on that gig, but also they lost out on something that they wanted for a long time for their wedding, but couldn't have. So I think this is
Yeah.
going to really be
Yeah.
helpful.
Well, we've also come up with a, display stand for saxophones, clarinets that we call Clearly Elegant. And it's a modular system that's designed to use every size and be just one model. So you don't need different things to display it. And it displays it in a very simple, elegant way. Do you see these?
Yes. Wow. Oh my gosh. First of all, that looks really beautiful. And
Right.
again, I know the audio podcast people, I'm hoping this will entice you to check out our YouTube channel, check out our videos there too. I don't mean to take away from the audio, but this, wow, this looks like elegant decorations.
Right. Bass clarinet. And over here, this stand over here will hold three. Um, let's see, let's try to get this to work this way. And it's all the same one where you just, it locks in place, and this slides up and down from a fully curved sopranino all the way up to a baritone saxophone with one extension, or a bass clarinet, and very quickly you adjust it to whatever sized. So it's a beautiful display. It's not designed to use for performance, but if I love the saxophone, it's art to me, and I like to display them. We even have this little thing here that is a bit unique, where we can put three saxophones on here. In this case, it's a straight soprano, alto, and tenor, all on one stand, and I have it turning. I didn't design it that way. I just thought I made me realize that, well, I'd like to show folks these clearly elegant stands while we had this opportunity.
No, and I think it's great that you did this because when I met you, when I saw you at NAMM, we had done a podcast, and I'll put the link in the show notes for that. But it was pretty noisy at NAMM, even though we had the microphones, going and whatnot. It was very noisy. So this really shows them in a different setting, actually, and it really it looked very beautiful there, and it will further entice people, especially studio teachers with private studios,
Yeah,
where you're teaching students with a variety of instruments. You can have them clearly displayed right there, and with the locking system, that's great. It keeps them really secure.
yeah, yeah. Those are not for sale just yet, but they will be fairly soon. We'll have them probably on Reverb and on our website. Um, we have Zach Spruill is with us now, and he's working with us in product in developing new ways to reach the customer. So he helped us get the Reverb up, and we'll put these on Reverb. So that's it. I appreciate you to let me show these tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, George, for spending the time and for also for having that special offer, $30.
Yeah, $30.
$30 for the original design of the Rovner Van Gogh ligatures. That's awesome. Like I said, I'll have the links in the show notes. And don't forget, folks, you could go to rovnerproducts.com, check out all the ligatures, all the stuff that they have to offer there. And now they have products on reverb.com. Check out that marketplace website, and you'll see a bunch of their products there as well. Thank you so much, George, for your time.
Thank you, Donna. It's been quite a pleasure. I'm glad we connected again.